Alrighty. As I was saying earlier on in those Instagram stories there, it started out by talking that we spend more time listening to the world's, opinion of who we are instead of listening to our kids and ourselves, and that the peace that we're chasing isn't found anywhere else apart from in ourselves. And that peace only ever shows up once, you accept to love yourself. And when that happens is when the right people show up, is what I was saying earlier. And if you are your true version and your true self and you found yourself and you love yourself, then those people who surround yourself won't be asking you to change. And then moving on to that is that, the hardest person to be honest with is yourself. And even when you think that you've been honest with yourself, that you need to dig deeper, because deep under there's still a lot of, a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot of, things to bring up that affect your behaviour, your patterns, and, it's got to be processed. So, learning, one of the hardest things is learning to love myself. Sit with myself, sit with my own thoughts and my own emotions. That's been pretty hard. And instead of running from them, acknowledging them, and that's something that I haven't been able to do, and that's something that I'm doing a lot of at the moment, and learning, and I'm making progress. I feel good about that. One of the things that I've definitely realised is that there is no finish line. So, in this life, the only morality of a finish line is death. We all make these things that, if I get this far, then I've finished. If I can make 2 months, then I've finished. And the problem is that, you're missing the point. Every day you need to make better choices. Loving yourself, loving your kids, loving your partner, your loved ones, and that's the whole game. Not setting these goals, these finish lines. That every single day is where you need to turn up, and loving yourself first is where it starts, and then everything else after that. Another thought there was, stop making excuses for your bullshit behaviour. Like my bullshit behaviour that I've, it's cost me pretty much everything. I'm starting from ground zero. I lost myself. I've lost, my children. I've lost, my partners. It's really hurt the people that I love, and that, you got to sit with that. Excuses, the excuses that I've hid behind, PTSD this, military that, I've been a sailor, a soldier, and military contractor, a prison officer. Who gives a shit? None of it means anything. The moment that you use those reasons to hide behind, you're basically using it as a screen to hide behind, instead of actually feeling something or saying it out aloud to someone, And that screen doesn't let emotion move, and when emotion can't move, it turns into, it turns into resentment, into feeling worthless, into insecurities. That's something that I've struggled with, and that's what leaks out onto the people that we love the most, and that hurts. And once you actually identify that and you start to work with that, it unlocks a lot of things in yourself, and it's something that got a long journey to go. But so basically, what I'm trying to say, it's an image, right? So I know that I'm a veteran. I know that I, was a military contractor, like I said, a prison officer, this, that, everything else, and you hold on to those identities, and then you overthink what that's supposed to do, what I'm supposed to look like because of them, that I'm not supposed to have emotions, that I'm supposed to be some tough, stoic, guy that's irritable or cranky or that, and what I'm supposed to look like because of those. And that's not it at all. And that's what I've realized, is that doesn't matter. That's a costume. That's not a self. I need to overcome, I need to overcome that and find who I actually am underneath, and to love myself for that person, not for the image of what I've been, So who cares? It's about today, it's about tomorrow, it's about being there for yourself and for those you love, not about what you've done. Who cares? It's all in the past. We need to visit the past. We need to look at the past to be able to get the tools to work on now, but we don't need to be in the past. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned so far. And underneath all of this, for me in my journey is the fear of not being worthy. I've been seen as worthy and having to live up to it. That you have to be doing something for somebody to feel worthy, to be worthy of anything. So instead, my downfall there, and what I've done in the past is I've assumed what other people think of me. And I appease what image that they want. You can form into what that person wants as opposed to what you need for yourself. Instead of just being honest and saying that something's an issue, and once again, you can blame the past. You can blame, this is how the military taught us, or who cares? Once again, we're concentrating on now. We need to get those tools and move forward and leave that bullshit behind. And another big thing that I'm really working on is, even on the day like today, when I think that I've finally worked it all out on these things that I've just spoken about, right? That's not the finish line either that I was talking about earlier. What I've worked out today, that just becomes tomorrow's foundations. And tomorrow morning when I get up, it all starts again. So what you've learnt today starts again tomorrow as the foundation. And fear and being scared and the fear is what it comes down to. So, love yourself, reflect on yourself, be truthful and honest with yourself, because that's what I'm struggling with and what I'm learning at the moment. And that's where my healing is starting. I could sit here and wish I'd found this sooner. I wish I could, I could sit here and wish that I'd found myself sooner. But wishing that that goes against the journey of today and the journey of tomorrow. And like I said, we can look back in the past for the tools to start healing and to find out who we are, but we can't stay caught there, if that makes sense. So, and another big thing that is working with my resentment on people, and we'll start with, the resentment that I carried, towards my ex-wife, the mother of my children. And I need to be honest to myself about something, and I'm not making excuses for her behaviour or what happened at the end of the marriage. That was her choice what she done, and that's not, but I own what I put her through to get there, like multiple surgeries. I've had 19 spinal surgeries, so she went through about 17 spinal surgeries of mine that she had to pick up the slack for. Years of mental health issues, that weren't diagnosed yet as PTSD, and not because I was hiding from it, because I hadn't identified it yet of having, PTSD. And you can't work through something that you can't name, and you can't name something you can't identify. That was my behaviour that created that gap. Not being present for my kids was a big part of that. I still don't have a lot of memory of my kids so far. and that's something I'm trying to work on. And to be clear, that's definitely not me ever wanting my ex-wife back. That day will never come. But this is just me being real with myself, and owning my part in that, because at the end of the day, that's affected my kids tremendously. When you're a father, and I mentioned this before, when you're a father and you're not with your kids every day, that's on me. I own that, working through it. And it didn't stop there. The next relationship, which is obviously, this is pretty fresh for me, so I'm still very, I'm still very working through this, but, that ended very recently, but had the same patterns to it. I wasn't present. I was up and down with my moods. I had my good days, I had my bad days, and all that did was left my partner walking on eggshells, not knowing what version of me that they were going to get that day. And that's not fair. That was not fair on her. That's something that, that's probably something. It was extremely, I'd say, selfish. But yeah, I own that 100%, 150%. I own that. That's not something for me to argue. I'm not arguing that. It's just an outcome that I have to accept. So anyway, that's today's wrap, and let's see what. Tomorrow's the weekend, so I probably won't be doing a walk tomorrow morning or Sunday, but I'll be definitely back into it on Monday and get some more reflecting happening.